Grasslands, mainly composed of grass. There's a map of grasslands in the world. The grasslands are, think of them as the middleman. They're in between little rainfall, which is desert and tundra, let's say, to more heavy rainfall, which are my forest. So you got all the forest here. And then there's also temperature-wise. They're average temperatures and average rainfall. So they're in the middle, categorized by both. And this map is showing you mild and extreme in terms of rainfall, and then hot and cold. And the grasslands are in the middle, okay? There's two types, or two main groups, temperate and tropical. Inside temperate grasslands, you've got prairies, pampas, and steppes, or steeps, or steppes. The soil is extremely fertile. That's what they consider the most used croplands of the world. And most of our food is grown on temperate grasslands. Think of prairies as rolling hills and pampas as sod-forming. Steeps are more like those tall grasses. Tropical grasslands are dry shrub or almost like wood towards the background, except there's very few trees. They're scattered. You basically only see this tree. Anybody know what the name of that tree is? I don't even. It starts with an A, and I can't even remember it right now. A, C, something. But that's the only tree you actually see in tropical grasslands. And the best examples are savannas, or more reference word, I would say. If we divide plants of the temperate grasslands are obviously grass. And because of seasons, the grass dies, and then what happens? Regenerates the soil, leading to fertile soil. So that's how you get that fertile crop growing. And in the savanna, you got the scattered tree. Yeah, that was what I was showing you here in a better picture, like close up. The trees, in order to survive or adapt to the herbivores, have thorns, and it's like their biggest defense. Since grass is the most abundant, you have mostly herbivores. But because every food source is grass, and I think they did a really good job of describing this, there's like these special roles that each animal has, like times of feeding and types of feeding, so that they avoid competition. So some eat leaves, and then some eat grass. But even then, it's divided. Like, what did giraffes eat? Leaves on tall trees, versus the zebra will eat long grasses, and some will eat grasses close to the ground. And then the elephants, since they're always like in little groups or clumped, they eat like grasses that are clumped. Fires occasionally happen in the grassland due to the dry seasons, and they're actually a good thing if controlled, obviously, because they help replenish the soil and restore nutrients. So desertification is the main environmental problem in a grassland, and it's basically the conversion from grassland to desert. And once you go there, or that extreme takes place, it's very hard to recover. What do you think leads to desertification? Give me some reasons. Definitely climate, and it's somewhere there. What else?
Deforestation. Like too much agriculture. Like no, what's the
poor?
Like poor farming.
Poor farming. What else? What's happening over here? What do they do?
Grazing.
Overgrazing. Good. And I think drought is here, so that what he was saying, and climate, which is correlated. All of those, so these are kind of natural, drought and climate change. Technically not, because we've led to extreme droughts, our behavior, obviously, the things we do, and the climate changing drastically. But overgrazing and poor farming is something like directly done all the time that causes this to occur. Coniferous forest. By definition, they're cone-bearing and needle-like trees. And then, of course, like everything else in the world, they have to have several names. Taiga and boreal forest are coniferous forests. So in your book, maybe I think it's referenced as a taiga, and then it re-references that as a coniferous forest. I'm not sure. But whenever you see those names, it's referencing the same biome. There's geography. They are categorized by heavy rainfall, or heavy precipitation, I should say, sorry, which mainly falls as what? Snow, because it's really cold. They do have seasons, really kind of only two. They have summers that are short and they're pretty warm because the sun is out during that time for long periods of time, but the winters are really, really long and cold, and sunlight doesn't really penetrate very long, making it colder. So in the coniferous forest, the plants are green all year long. They're known as evergreen plants. They stay without shedding leaves the whole year. But there is snowfall, and snowfall does put pressure on leaves and causes them to fall. So there is, like if you go to a coniferous forest, you see needles on the floor, but it's not because they're shedding or trying to accommodate or, you know, an adaptation. It's just because of the conditions. They're usually small needle-like trees, and then there's this waxy coating, and there's a picture for you to see, which kind of it's like an adaptation for leaves to withstand the intense cold that takes place. And there's a picture of needle-like versus cone-bearing coniferous trees. Decomposition is slow. Why? It's cold. So and besides the slow decomposition, when it does happen, because these waxy coating on the leaves is full of like an acidic substance, the soil is actually known as being extremely acidic and obviously in that case nutrient poor. Animals have thick fur, and they are very few species, and most of them that live there migrate during the extreme temperatures. And then the biggest problem is deforestation, which I'm going to talk about more when I do rainforests. Deciduous forests, by definition, are trees that shed their leaves in the fall, as she mentioned. They are categorized for having heavy rain, so they're like a rainforest because they have a lot of heavy rain, except they have, you know, those exposed seasons, especially one that's dry, whereas a rainforest does not. And I would say temperatures vary because, of course, they have seasons, but when it's cold, it's cold. When it's warm, it's warm. And keep in mind that they're like the one biome that expresses the four seasons perfectly. Again, remember I mentioned temperate and tropical. Keep those in mind. I mean, that looks more like a deciduous forest, so they kind of blend in that capacity. The soil of a rainforest, what do you think it's going to be like? I mean, a deciduous, we already know. Rich. Because of the seasons, the trees shed their leaves in the fall, and the floor is full of what they call leaf litter. So it's massive amounts of organic matter, really, and the nutrients are then recycled, and decomposition leads to rich, fertile soil. As mentioned, they have broad leaf, hardwood like maple, oak, hickory. So most of your like construction wood comes from deciduous forest. Few predators left due to hunting and urbanization, which is basically restructuring the forest to accommodate homes and populations. And there's a lot of migration due to the changing seasons. Animals that live there will hide their food in the trees and store them for winter. Like coniferous forests, deciduous forest's main problem is deforestation. And again, I'm going to re-reference that whole concept when I do rainforests.